Oshi No Ko took the anime world by storm. It had one of the most streamed songs in Japan in 2023, with a story that touched millions in a variety of ways. And while there are other pieces of media similar to it, I don't believe we'll ever see anything quite like Oshi No Ko again. Before we go any further, spoilers ahead for both seasons of the anime. My experience with the show was pretty normal. I knew nothing outside of Ai's iconic pose on the poster and the general hype machine that was going. Then again, I did see it all from an arm stretched out. I had a few friends and saw a lot of posts on social media not too long after the first episode came out, so that's what got me to watch. The genius of Oshi No Ko is the depth to the narrative, and the story is as much or as little as you want to take from it. I was speaking to one of my best friends while the second season was coming out, and my broad interpretation is that it's a drama thriller with supernatural elements that at its core exposes the horrible underbelly that is the Japanese entertainment industry. For my friend, he saw it as nothing more than mostly an idol show. When we asked his wife, who was the only one out of the three of us who had read the manga who was closer, her assessment was, you're sort of both right. That statement alone shows, in one sense, why from a storytelling point of view, what makes Oshi No Ko such a unique piece of media. You get as much as you want out of it, depending on how much you really want to think about it. When a show comes along and it breaks into the mainstream anime audience, where even casual fans who stick to mostly only well-known shows become aware of something that is typically something they wouldn't normally consume, it will always cause some division. I've seen simply some of the best shows in recent memory receive criticism. Such shows as Frieren, Beyond the Journey's End were criticized for some of the slower pacing, or that it wasn't filled to the brim with action. It more underpins the fact that sometimes audiences get the wrong first impression on a show. For its first episode, I will agree, Oshi No Ko also does this. Having a film as a first episode is a bold start to go. With this in mind, it's also the same length as about 5 episodes of a typical anime, meaning that if you assume the average anime is 12 episodes long, the final shot would be this from episode 7. Season 1 is dominated by Ai, a character that is synonymous with the show and its plot. Without Ai, there isn't a story, but she's only in the show for around 14% of the total show, but she is the main character, the pose, the touchstone, a connection for the lead's previous life seen in episode 1, but also for them to become, as well, Ai's offspring. She's a driving force for the world and was such a meta-definer that well after her death, emulations of her are noticed. Season 1 covers the idea of bullying and the hypocrisy of actors and actresses. Akane is driven to the length that she takes actions to take her own life. That the standard to maintain one's composure and reputation as a woman is so high that making sure it doesn't get to you for some is almost impossible. And if it wasn't for Aqua, who knows what might have happened. Whereas Melt, an actor that was doing a frankly awful job at acting, wasn't ridiculed to the same extent. He also was performing in a highly scripted environment where a sudden mistake could not be used against him by the producers, which Akane in a pseudo-reality show wasn't offered. Melt is also given a second chance as we see him performing in Tokyo Blade's production in season 2 of the show, whereas Akane had to fix the situation she found herself in at the lowest point when all hope felt lost. Learning what she needed to do and to pull it out, in part of to please Aqua, but also we got to learn the sheer stakes and what she's willing to go to not lose everything she's worked so hard for. I point these events out, 2 events that happened between episodes. Episode 3 and episode 7. That's 5 episodes of separation. The show itself doesn't make a direct comparison. Rather, it's the grim horror of the world. While you might not like it, there is a privilege at play. One that gets overlooked, especially within the entertainment industry. The arguably main character is murdered, but due to the power that people within the industry have, it's not investigated further than face value. Is it the corruption of the entertainment industry? Is it an overworked and underappreciated police force, or is it something else? The show doesn't say. That's for Aqua and, a lesser degree, Ruby to work out. More so, is it also the hook out of the first episode. While Aqua doesn't have to work as hard at acting till we arrive at season 2, it's clear he does have some some of his mother's talents. Perhaps he's able to tap into that sheer gravity that Ai commands over the series. But it's also clear that this presence is more with Ruby, but in a bit more complicated way. Ruby and Aqua both showcase the struggle of being two people trapped in one body. For Ruby, her past life, the only joy she got was from her only friend, the doctor, that she grew to love, and Ai for her music and performances. In her new life as Ruby, she has a difficult task of being a pretty girl, but also trying to follow her mother's footsteps. Her want, her need to be big, to play at the Tokyo Dome. This is hard. There is and will always be this unimaginable thing. You've either got it or you don't. That agents, talent scouts, producers, directors, and all sorts of people will say. Ruby is that definition of trying to emulate her mother while she works out who she actually is, as in part she still sees herself as that little sick girl in hospital. She's also pushed in part to the background of the show, while she's working hard and is pushing at every step to grow her following and doing everything that's tasked of her and asked of her to build notoriety. In part, if she wants to be successful, like her mother, she'll have to become the main singer of the group. At some point, the group is a competition. This is also a reflection for Aqua and the others as they work and build up to the performance of Tokyo Blade. It is unclear who within the group will break out as the lead. Ruby has the drive to keep pushing music, but upon learning that one person she so desperately wanted to meet again, that she loved, died, and that the person who murdered her mother is still out there during the music video, she snaps. The eyes changing from white to black is that very literal representation that there has been a radical shift in personality, but also that aspirations, that revenge is on the mind, that it's also, and if you'll humor me for a moment, that void that we've all felt, that seeping feeling that all hope is lost due to aspects of their lives, that star going out for them is a far deeper, and perhaps their drive for stardom has become corrupted. Ai, more than anything, lied. She was a master at it. The only truth that she truly had that I as a viewer believed is that she loved her children. Otherwise, I wouldn't trust her, and she wouldn't trust me if I was in her universe. It was how she survived. No, it was how she thrived. I always thought that perhaps the white stars are the fact that Ai is able to lie and that her children were able to carry that lie. The ability or even able to believe the lie. The star changing to black is the wool coming off the eyes and them realizing, or worse, losing that star, meaning they've lost their identity or perhaps even connection to their mother altogether. Currently, 2 seasons deep, we've seen the throes of show business, what it means to achieve stardom and the underbelly of good people working hard on what they love. To those only higher up the chain, use and abuse. But that isn't always the case. Sometimes, as these seasons have shown us, you have to fight for your art. Yukio knows this all too well. Her beloved series, I'll Go Sweet Today, was adapted into a TV show. It was mismanaged and forced through quickly the production pipeline to get it made, only to capitalize on its known popularity, which was only slightly saved towards the end by a strong performance from Aqua, which in turn brought out a better performance from the rest of the talent. She was the mentor for Abiko, who witnessed the manga she loved with all her heart and was disgusted. This is a core part of the plot in season 2, in which in part caused her so much anxiety. She feels insulted that the manga she worked on by someone that she admired so greatly, arguably best work, was thrown into forgotten TV. With her own manga now being adapted into a stage play, they want to take on all of the responsibilities to prevent what could happen, to avoid the same catastrophe that happened to her mentor. However, to do this would be at their own peril and at risk of the adaptation as a whole. This parallel is made countless times between the first 2 seasons and within the seasons, as I've already outlined in this video. What happens to one doesn't always happen to another, but in this business, you hear a lot more of the bad than the good. In show business, you might have to be an Ai lie and lie to make it all the way to the top. The expression, fake it till you make it, feels very appropriate for show business. But in life in general, we all experience at some point imposter syndrome. Arguably, a little bit is a good thing. It shows that you're still hungry and there is a willingness to push yourself. Even so, the show showcases the reality, the sheer idea of even stopping in any sense, or rather the sheer factor that if you keep pushing, even when you might have peaked as a child actor, you need to do it again. Even when others around you might be more talented and causing you self-doubt, you must keep going. But the show also showcases that simple factor that sometimes it's who you know and having those connections to be able to keep growing your career. But also, you've got to be lucky. You can't manifest it. You can't work harder than anybody else. And sometimes you've just got to be at the right place at the right time. Oshi No Ko, to me, is simply fantastic to watch over and over, to speak with others about and how they feel about it and the connections. Its story isn't perfect. It does have flaws, but that's also a very real thing. Some of the most intelligent characters are often left helpless to watch real, natural conclusions come in, as butting in potentially would hurt those around them. This was more than anything just a love note to Oshi No Ko. I clearly love talking with others and thinking about the show. It's got a lot to convey, and I hope you will think about shows that definitely demand that level of respect for them. Not every show needs this. You can just enjoy shows for what they are, but sometimes there's a few layers you can peel back. But with that all said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all very, very soon.